Imagine this. You're scrolling through Facebook Marketplace, looking for a bargain when you find it, the perfect item. A stunning antique mirror, a vintage dresser, or a rare Polaroid camera. The price is unbelievable, and you can't resist. But what if that item came with something you didn't pay for? Something dark. Tonight, we uncover 3 chilling true stories of people who bought more than they bargained for. From cursed objects that haunt their owners to furniture with a sinister past, these tales will make you rethink every click, every purchase, every deal, because sometimes the real cost isn't in dollars. It's in your sanity. By the end of this video, you'll never scroll through Marketplace the same way again. Let's dive in, if you dare. It all started with a simple Facebook Marketplace listing. Antique mirror, $50. Perfect condition. Must go today. The photo showed an ornate, full-length mirror with a gilded frame, its glass gleaming under the soft light of a chandelier. Emily, a college student with a love for vintage decor, couldn't resist. She messaged the seller immediately, and within hours, the mirror was hers. The seller, an elderly woman named Margaret, seemed friendly enough. She lived in a quaint house on the outskirts of town, and when Emily arrived to pick up the mirror, Margaret insisted on helping her load it into her car. "Be careful with it," Margaret warned, her voice tinged with an odd seriousness. "It's special." Emily didn't think much of the comment at the time. She was too excited about her new find. The mirror looked even better in person, its intricate carvings and gold leaf detailing catching the light in her small apartment. She placed it in her bedroom, leaning it against the wall opposite her bed. It was the perfect addition to her space. But that first night, something felt off. Emily woke up around 3 a.m., her heart racing. She didn't know what had woken her, but the room felt colder than usual. She sat up, rubbing her arms, and glanced at the mirror. Her reflection stared back at her, but something was wrong. Her reflection was smiling. Emily froze, her breath catching in her throat. She wasn't smiling. She was wide-eyed, her face pale with fear. But in the mirror, her reflection grinned back at her, its eyes dark and hollow. She blinked, and the reflection returned to normal. She told herself it was just a trick of the light, a product of her half-asleep mind. But deep down, she knew something was wrong. The next day, Emily tried to brush off the incident. She went about her routine, but the mirror seemed to loom in the corner of her room, its presence unnerving. That night, she decided to cover it with a sheet before going to bed. She didn't want to take any chances. But when she woke up the next morning, the sheet was on the floor, neatly folded at the base of the mirror. Emily's stomach churned. She hadn't touched the sheet. She was sure of it. She grabbed her phone and texted her best friend, Jess, asking if she could come over. She needed someone else to see this. Jess arrived that afternoon, and Emily explained everything. Jess, ever the skeptic, laughed it off. "Jess, it's just a mirror, Em. You're probably just stressed from finals." But as the day turned to night, even Jess began to feel uneasy. They sat on Emily's bed, staring at the mirror. The room was silent, the air thick with tension. And then, they saw it. Emily's reflection moved on its own. It tilted its head, its smile widening unnaturally. Jess screamed, grabbing Emily's arm. "Jess, what the hell is that?" Emily didn't answer. She was too focused on the mirror. Her reflection stepped closer, its hand pressing against the glass. The surface rippled like water, and the reflection began to climb out. Emily and Jess scrambled off the bed, backing away as the figure emerged from the mirror. It looked like Emily, but its eyes were black, its smile too wide, too sharp. It stepped closer, its movements jerky and unnatural. "Get out," it whispered, its voice a distorted echo of Emily's. Emily and Jess didn't need to be told twice. They ran out of the apartment, not stopping until they were safely in Jess's car. Emily called the police, but when they arrived, the mirror was gone. The apartment was empty, as if it had never been there. Emily never went back to her apartment. She moved in with Jess and tried to forget about the mirror. But sometimes, when she's alone, she catches a glimpse of her reflection out of the corner of her eye. And it's always smiling. When Sarah stumbled across the listing for an antique dresser on Facebook Marketplace, she knew she had to have it. The piece was stunning. A Victorian-era dresser with intricate carvings and a rich mahogany finish. The seller, a man named Greg, was asking for $200, but Sarah managed to talk him down to $150. She arranged to pick it up that same evening. Greg lived in an old, run-down house on the edge of town. When Sarah arrived, he was waiting for her on the porch, his face pale and drawn. He didn't say much as he helped her load the dresser into her truck, but as she was about to leave, he grabbed her arm. "Be careful with it," he said, his voice low and urgent. "It's not what it seems." Sarah brushed off the warning, chalking it up to Greg's eccentricity. She was too excited about her new find to worry about his cryptic comments. When she got home, she placed the dresser in her bedroom, admiring its craftsmanship. It was the perfect addition to her vintage-themed decor. But that night, something felt off. Sarah woke up around 2 a.m., her heart pounding. She didn't know what had woken her, but the room felt colder than usual. She sat up, rubbing her arms, and glanced at the dresser. The drawers were slightly open, even though she was sure she'd closed them before going to bed. She got up and pushed the drawers shut, her hands trembling. As she turned to go back to bed, she heard a faint scratching sound, like nails dragging across wood. It was coming from inside the dresser. Sarah froze, her breath catching in her throat. She told herself it was just her imagination, but the sound grew louder, more insistent. She grabbed her phone and turned on the flashlight, shining it at the dresser. The scratching stopped, and the room fell silent. The next morning, Sarah tried to brush off the incident. She told herself it was just the house settling, or maybe a mouse trapped inside the dresser. But as the days passed, the strange occurrences grew more frequent. The drawers would open on their own, the scratching sound would return in the dead of night, and sometimes she would hear faint whispers coming from inside the dresser. Sarah's friends thought she was overreacting. "It's just an old piece of furniture," they said. "It's probably just the wood expanding and contracting." But Sarah knew it was more than that. She could feel it. The dresser had a presence, a weight that seemed to fill the room. She decided to investigate, determined to find out what was going on. She emptied the dresser, pulling out each drawer and examining them carefully. That's when she found it. A small, hidden compartment at the back of the bottom drawer. Inside was a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age. Sarah unfolded it, her hands trembling. The note was written in cramped, spidery handwriting. "If you're reading this, it's too late. The dresser is cursed. It feeds on fear. Don't let it take you." Sarah's blood ran cold. She didn't know what to do. She thought about getting rid of the dresser, but something stopped her. She couldn't explain it, but she felt drawn to it, as if it were calling to her. That night, Sarah woke up to the sound of the drawers slamming open and shut. She sat up, her heart racing. The room was freezing, her breath visible in the air. The whispers were back, louder this time, more frantic. "Sarah," they whispered. "Sarah, come to us." Sarah tried to resist, but she couldn't. She got out of bed and walked toward the dresser, her movements slow and deliberate. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as she reached out and opened the top drawer. Inside was a mirror, its surface black and oily. Sarah stared into it, her reflection distorted and twisted. And then she saw it. A hand reaching out from the mirror, its fingers long and skeletal. It grabbed her wrist, pulling her closer. Sarah screamed, but no sound came out. The whispers grew louder, more frantic, as the hand pulled her into the mirror. The next morning, Sarah's roommate found the dresser in the middle of the room, its drawers open and empty. Sarah was gone, her phone and keys still on the nightstand. The police were called, but there was no sign of her. The dresser was taken away as evidence, but it disappeared from the station the next day. To this day, Sarah's disappearance remains a mystery. But sometimes, when the moon is full, the whispers return, low and insistent, calling out to anyone who will listen. When Alex saw the listing for a vintage Polaroid camera on Facebook Marketplace, he couldn't resist. The camera was a rare model from the 1970s, and the seller was only asking $50. The photos in the listing showed the camera in pristine condition, its leather casing still intact and its lens gleaming. Alex, an amateur photographer, messaged the seller immediately and arranged to pick it up that evening. The seller, a man named Victor, lived in a small, dimly lit apartment on the outskirts of town. When Alex arrived, Victor seemed nervous, his hands trembling as he handed over the camera. "Be careful with it," Victor said, his voice low and urgent. "It's not like other cameras." Alex brushed off the warning, too excited about his new purchase to pay much attention. He took the camera home and immediately loaded it with film, eager to test it out. The first few photos were normal, shots of his living room, his cat, and the view from his balcony. But when he developed the fourth photo, something was wrong. The photo showed Alex sitting on his couch, but there was someone else in the frame, a shadowy figure standing behind him, its face obscured. Alex frowned, holding the photo up to the light. He didn't remember anyone being in the room when he took the photo. He shook it off, assuming it was just a trick of the light or a double exposure. But the next photo was even stranger. It was a shot of his bedroom, but the figure was there again, this time closer, its face partially visible. The features were blurred, but Alex could make out hollow eyes and a twisted smile. His stomach churned as he stared at the photo, his mind racing. Takifre. Gap 3s. That night, Alex woke up to the sound of footsteps in his apartment. He sat up, his heart pounding. The room was dark, but he could hear the footsteps moving closer, the floorboards creaking under the weight. He grabbed his phone and turned on the flashlight, shining it around the room. The figure from the photo was standing in the corner, its hollow eyes fixed on him. Alex screamed, scrambling out of bed and backing away. The figure didn't move, but its smile widened, its teeth sharp and jagged. Alex grabbed the camera and hurled it at the figure, but it passed right through, shattering against the wall. The figure disappeared, and the room fell silent. Alex didn't sleep the rest of the night. He spent the next day researching the camera, determined to find out what was going on. He found an old forum post from years ago, detailing the history of the camera. According to the post, the camera had once belonged to a photographer named Samuel Graves, who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Graves had been obsessed with capturing the perfect shot, and rumors swirled that he had made a deal with something dark to achieve it. The camera was said to be cursed, its photos capturing not just the present, but the unseen, the spirits that lingered in the shadows. Alex's blood ran cold as he read the post. He knew he had to get rid of the camera, but something stopped him. He felt drawn to it, as if it were calling to him. That night, he decided to take one last photo, just to see what would happen. He set up the camera on his tripod and sat on the couch, the timer set for 10 seconds. The flash went off, and the camera spat out the photo. Alex waited for it to develop, his hands trembling. The photo showed Alex sitting on the couch, but the figure was there again, this time standing right behind him. Its face was fully visible now, its hollow eyes staring directly into the camera, and in its hand was a knife. Alex's heart raced as he heard the footsteps again, this time right behind him. He turned, but it was too late. The figure lunged at him, its knife glinting in the dim light. The next morning, Alex's roommate found the camera on the tripod, its lens cracked and its film spilled across the floor. Alex was gone, his phone and keys still on the coffee table. The police were called, but there was no sign of him. The camera was taken away as evidence, but it disappeared from the station the next day. To this day, Alex's disappearance remains a mystery. But sometimes, when the moon is full, the camera reappears, its lens gleaming in the darkness, waiting for its next victim. And that wraps up our journey into 3 spine-chilling stories from Facebook Marketplace. From cursed mirrors to haunted dressers and cameras that capture the unimaginable, these tales remind us that not everything is as it seems, especially when it comes to a bargain. But here's the twist. These stories aren't just here to scare you. They're a reminder that sometimes the things we bring into our lives carry more than we bargained for. So, the next time you're scrolling through Marketplace, think twice before hitting buy. If these stories sent shivers down your spine, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and drop a comment telling me which one creeped you out the most. Was it the mirror, the dresser, or the camera? Share this video with your friends who love a good scare, and make sure to hit the bell icon so you never miss a terrifying tale. Thanks for watching, and remember, some deals are better left untouched. Stay curious, stay scared, and I'll see you in the next video.